Adara hid in the hallway and heard the cold words that shattered her peace. Her mother-in-law's voice was firm. "No man should leave his name to die," she said to Chidi. "It may be time to find another wife." Those words stabbed Adaora's heart. She realized, in that moment, how easily her place in her own marriage could be threatened. After years of trying to have a child, she felt society's impatience crushing her spirit. Adaora's life in Lagos had always been busy. She worked as an accountant in a large firm, juggling numbers and audits with ease. People saw her as intelligent, organized, and calm under pressure. Her husband, Chidi, was just as driven. He had built his small import business from nothing, saving every spare naira until his efforts brought him success. Together, they were respected in their church, well-liked in their families, and admired for their achievements. Yet, in all the hustle of city life and career milestones, one prayer remained unanswered. Adaora and Chidi had no child. In the early years, they did not let it bother them much. They believed there was still time. They took trips outside Lagos, bought a nice apartment, and planned for a future that seemed bright. But as year 3 rolled into year 4, the questions from friends and neighbors became more pointed. At family gatherings, older relatives spoke to Chidi in hushed tones, hinting that he should not waste his prime years. "My son," one aunt would say, "it is important to have someone to carry on your name." They rarely said these things to Adaora's face, but she could sense the shift in their attitude. Their polite smiles faded whenever she entered the room, replaced by pity or judgment. At work, Adaora noticed the curious looks from colleagues whenever another woman announced her pregnancy. The stares felt heavier than any workload. A few openly asked if she was trying too hard to climb the corporate ladder. Their assumption stung. They thought her ambition was the reason she had no child. At church, the comments took another shape. "Have you tried seeing that famous prophet?" someone asked. "There might be spiritual forces at work," another chimed in. Adaora felt suffocated by their well-meaning but intrusive advice. As the weight of these expectations grew, Chidi's restlessness turned into frustration. He suggested seeing more fertility doctors, even though each specialist repeated the same result. There was no medical reason for their inability to conceive. The constant disappointment made Chidi wonder if the problem lay beyond modern science. He never said outright that Adaora was at fault, but she could sense his concern turning into doubt. One night, she overheard him on the phone with his mother. The older woman's voice echoed clearly. "You've tried enough, my son. Maybe we should explore other options. A second wife would not be a sin in the eyes of tradition." Adaora's throat closed up with quiet despair. The idea of being replaced left her feeling powerless. She had dedicated herself to this marriage, believing they would walk through life as partners. Now, her place felt fragile. After the call ended, Chidi came to her. His eyes were tired, his shoulders slumped. She recognized the guilt he carried, but his words still hurt. "I don't know what else to do," he said plainly, though it was not a direct demand. He did not say he wanted another wife, but the suggestion hung in the air. Adaora took a slow breath and looked at him. There were no tears in her eyes, at least not then. Instead, she said, "Give me time, Chidi. Let me pray in my own way." Her voice did not shake. She was determined to cling to her faith, even if everyone around her doubted. That night, while the noise of Lagos hummed outside, she knelt by the bed and bowed her head. She prayed, as she had many times before, but with fresh urgency. She poured out all her anxieties, fears, and hopes. She asked for strength to keep believing, even if the path was long. She cried softly, tears rolling onto the floor. It was the first moment in a long while that she felt truly vulnerable in her own home. In the weeks that followed, Adaora found a deeper sense of resolve. She continued to pray each night, woke early each morning, and tried to drown out the noise of other people's opinions. Yet the city and its endless questions did not let her rest. One Sunday at church, as she stepped outside after the service, an elderly woman with a gentle face approached her. Adaora had never met this woman before. There was a calm presence about her that made Adaora feel strangely comforted. "My dear," the woman said in a quiet voice, "sometimes faith begins with a seed." She pulled out a small potted plant from a cloth bag. The plant was tiny, its leaves bright green. "Water it each day," the woman continued. "Pray as you water it, then watch what happens." Adaora thanked her, though she did not fully understand the reason behind this gift. Still, she sensed there was a lesson in the gesture, something about nurturing faith in a quiet, steady way. When she got home, she placed the plant by the window in the living room. The city's sun was often harsh, but she knew how to care for delicate things. Each morning, before heading to work, she watered it with a little cup of water. As she poured the water, she whispered her prayers, asking God for the strength to believe in what seemed impossible. Chidi, watching from the doorway one day, could not hide his skepticism. He asked, "How is a plant supposed to change our situation?" Adaora did not argue. She only said, "It reminds me to keep faith alive." Days turned into weeks, and she saw the plant grow. New leaves unfolded, reaching upward as if celebrating the sunlight. During the same period, Adaora felt a change in herself. She had been cautious before, never wanting to read too much into small signs. But she noticed her energy levels dropping in the afternoons. She felt dizziness now and then, a wave of nausea that stopped her mid-task at work. One morning, she woke earlier than usual with an unsettling feeling in her stomach. A friend at the office urged her to take a medical test. Adaora had done this before, always with a heavy heart, fearing another negative result. But this time, something urged her on. She picked up a pregnancy test on her way home and used it in the privacy of her bathroom. She waited, eyes closed, breath unsteady, until she looked down. 2 clear lines stared back at her. Her mind froze. Tears rushed to her eyes, but she was uncertain whether they were tears of joy or disbelief. A wave of relief washed over her, followed by a sudden spike of gratitude. After so many years of waiting, a piece of her dream had finally taken shape. She sank to her knees and whispered, "Thank you, thank you." When she told Chidi, he stood in stunned silence, holding the test in his trembling hands. His eyes darted between Adaora and the small pink lines, struggling to accept the reality. Then his eyes glistened as well. In that moment, he felt the deepest kind of gratitude, one that comes only after walking through a valley of disappointment. The months that followed were both thrilling and nerve-wracking. Adaora visited the doctor often, determined to do everything right. She stayed cautious about her health, accepting the constant advice from well-meaning relatives and acquaintances, yet mindful not to let their fears cloud her peace. She believed, with every day, that her baby was a miracle in the making. Chidi's attitude shifted. He seemed to become more caring, often checking on her at work just to see if she needed anything. The tension in his face eased, replaced by a quiet anticipation. They began to prepare their home for the child, rearranging furniture, reading parenting books, and imagining what life might be like in a few months. At one of the doctor's appointments, they received news that doubled their joy. Twins, a boy and a girl. Adaora laughed at the unexpected blessing, tears of happiness rolling down her cheeks. Chidi gently placed a hand on her shoulder, looking more excited than she had ever seen him. Everything felt surreal, yet somehow perfectly timed. As her pregnancy advanced, Adaora found herself reflecting on the many days she had cried, thinking she might never have a child. She remembered the elderly woman in church who had given her a plant and told her to believe in what happens when faith grows. Day by day, the babies in her womb grew stronger, echoing the lesson of that small seed. When the day of delivery came, Adaora was both excited and anxious. Chidi paced the hospital corridor, heart pounding. After hours of labor, the cries of two newborns filled the room. A boy and a girl, each announced to the world with a tiny wail. Adaora, exhausted and trembling, felt relief wash over her. All the pain and waiting melted away when she held her children for the first time. They were perfect in their smallness, each one an answer to a prayer that had once seemed impossible. Word spread quickly among family and friends. Many visited, bearing gifts and warm congratulations. The same relatives who had pressured Chidi about an heir were the first to admire the twins, praising Adaora's strength. Her mother-in-law arrived, eyes shining with delight. She held each grandchild close, whispering blessings and well wishes. There was no mention of a second wife, no hints of dissatisfaction. That chapter was closed. When Adaora and Chidi brought the twins home, the small plant still thrived by the window. It was no longer the fragile seedling it had once been. New branches extended outward, a symbol of growth and endurance. In her heart, Adaora believed the plant stood for the power of believing when no one else did. In the weeks after the birth, life settled into a different rhythm. Adaora and Chidi lost sleep tending to the twins, but they laughed more often. They found themselves immersed in this new, beautiful adventure of parenthood. Whenever someone asked about their long journey to this moment, Adaora would smile and say, "We learned to wait and trust." Chidi's perspective had changed as well. He realized that sometimes the most important breakthroughs happen in times of patience and perseverance. It was not only about Adaora's prayers, it was also about allowing hope to survive in the face of doubt. Lagos still buzzed outside their doors, forever busy with its traffic and ambitions. But within their home, there was a sense of calm. The twins napped in their cribs, while Adaora worked on the couch with her laptop, balancing motherhood and career. Chidi would watch them all and remember how close he had come to losing hope. He felt humble gratitude each time he saw Adaora cradling the babies, singing soft lullabies before bedtime. In the end, Adaora's story showed that faith is not a momentary wish. It is a steady belief that grows stronger when challenged. Her journey was never about grand gestures or immediate miracles. Instead, it was about tending to the seeds of hope with daily care. With every prayer said in the stillness of night, every tear wiped away in secret, she proved the power of simple perseverance. And so, in a city known for its noise and speed, Adaora's quiet story of patience and trust became a testimony that sometimes impossible dreams come true when you keep watering them with faith, no matter how small they first appear. Share your thoughts about this story in the comments section, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel for more exciting stories from the heart of Africa.